Welcome to Directly Correct, a PLS podcast with Cole and Scott. Today's guest, Alan Colquitt, lead talent planning, succession management, and assessments at John Deere.
Thanks to our sponsors, Lightcast. The world is full of talent data, but more data can lead to more questions, uncertainty, and stagnation as organizations sift through it to figure out what's fact from what's fiction. Lightcast talent intelligence platform answers your most difficult workforce questions to drive meaningful business results. With more than 20 years of experience as MC in burning glass, Lightcast accelerates your work, bringing together hundreds of billions of vetted, constantly updated data points and incredible insights to drive strategic talent decisions. Your organization can tap into the deepest open repository of skills, supply, and demand data in the world to transform your hunches into a skills-based future for your organization. Lightcast's flexible solution, used by 67 of the Fortune 100, can integrate your own data, be guided by in-house talent experts, and give you the tools and confidence to explore it for yourself. To learn more, book a demo at lightcast.io. All opinions are our own and do not reflect those of any other organization.
I still don't know what people analytics is. Like, the only differentiation I can put in my mind is like dashboards.
It's
You
like,
know?
what is it? Convergent validity and discriminant validity. Like, I think a lot of times it's easier to say what it's not than what it is.
What IO is not, or what people analytics is not.
What I think it's a lot easier to say what IO is, because it's like there's literal like manuals about like what it consists of, and there's been tons of research on it and like journals. Whereas people analytics was like this emergent property that happened in HR in multiple places over periods of time. And so like a really powerful person could come into the field and just say, well, this is what it is now. And people will be like, all right, I guess it's something different, but it's not really codified like what is and what it is not. And that's why the academics always get upset about it. It's like, first, can you define what people analytics is? Like, okay, God, we got to do this again.
Well, I think it's a fair question though, because like this is what I'm struggling with, and I it does feel like old wine, new bottle, right? It feels like it's like a new term for something that we've already been doing for a while. Perhaps it's more inclusive.
Sure.
You could argue it's an umbrella term for more sort of the analytics space, which I can totally get behind, but to not define it like just leaves a big question mark over my head, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what it means.
I think about this stuff very practically. I
Mm-hmm.
think what do people do who are called people analytics practitioners, right? And the reality is it's not that diverse. It's diverse. It's not that diverse, right? When you look at like what IO psychologists who go into the working world do, it is very, very diverse. I mean, there's people all over the place doing different things. And
So
so
you're
I
saying
just,
that IOs would not fall under people analytics then,
no, I'm
or
saying that
there's less overlap?
there's overlap. There's things that are IO that are not people analytics. There are things that are people analytics that are not IO, and there's a large overlap.
But you're saying there's less variance in the people analytics space?
If you actually looked at what job titles of what people do, yeah, I think there is. It's like
Okay.
analyst,
Now I'm just really
senior
confused,
analyst.
and I really think that we just need a definition now because I was thinking of people analytics as a umbrella term over IO and other areas, but now it's sounding like something totally different.
I mean, we may just disagree on this, and that's fine.
I don't know if we disagree. I just don't know.
We don't know. Well, maybe Alan has an answer for
Maybe
us.
Alan
Hey,
has an
Alan.
answer.
I always have an answer for something.
Well, that's why you're here. Well, so tell us, in your opinion, are people analytics and IO psychology interchangeable? Are they different? Are they like a Venn diagram where there's overlap and there's things that are distinct amongst them?
Yeah, definitely.
What's your perspective?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, a lot of people analytics people are not psychologists at all. A lot of data scientists types. There are a lot of them doing people analytics stuff. Even economists, behavioral economists. I think probably. I mean, if you look at real analytical people in organizations, the IOs are probably maybe close to the minority now.
Yeah.
I
Well,
agree
we're
with
like
that.
a plurality is what I would call it. It's like we're a large minority.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's, the difference between there's people analytics people that know how to do analytical work, but after they're done, they don't know what to do. These are like economists like that.
Mhm.
In fact, I was just reading, what pisses me off about economists is they,
Here
um,
we go. Let's
like
do it.
this one, like I just got this.
What is
Yuri
it?
Easy, he's awesome. But in the end, you read it and you're like, it's just a bunch of studies. Like, Yuri, what should we do?
It's like
And
we found this result because we controlled for all these variables, and
yeah,
there you go.
lots of great studies. Like, okay, what should we do now? Like, what would you tell us? Should we do it? Should we use it or not? And so there's no like underlying theory or perspective that gives you guidance. That's my problem with the economists playing in our space. I think they're doing a lot of the coolest studies, but in the end, you're just left kind of wanting. Um, so yeah, I don't know. How do we get into that?
I think that's right though. They don't have a theoretical base to replicate their results, right? You can like increase your R squared all you want, but if you don't know
Yeah,
what it's doing and like a basic understanding of human nature,
yeah, and
then
you don't have
what
the
good is it?
content well, how do you fix it? Like if
Yeah,
you find
yeah, yeah.
out that this doesn't work and people aren't coming in or your incentives only work for the people that pick up roadkill on the interstate. Yeah, that's a David Futrell line. Then like, all right, well, what do we do with the rest of the 99.9% of the jobs? And so anyway, I like I spent more time reading economic um, economics journals over the past 10 years than probably even but probably than psychological research. um, but it always is it's brutally difficult to get through. Number one, very quantitative, and in the end, they don't really give you a whole lot in terms of guidance on what to do based on what they've found. But some of it, the research is just fascinating.
Oh, it absolutely is. And by the way, what was the name of that book you were holding up that you're referencing?
It's called Mixed Signals. Yuri
Okay.
Nizi, he's an economist, and some of the coolest work by Nisi and Rushcini. I assume Italian. I don't know, but they did a lot of cool research, and really are in some of the most indicting, I think, studies of pay for performance that you'll read.
Well, so like, what's an example of that?
Well, like one of them is this classic study of this Israeli daycare center, right? So and if you got kids, you take them to daycare, and they pick them up late, and it irritates the teachers and the staff because they have families to get home to. So like, what do you do? Well, of course, you find the parents. Like what you need is incentives. So
Yeah.
of course that's the right way to do this. You find the parents, and then they'll stop picking their kids up late. Well, this is the way most incentive schemes work. Is That's not what happened at all. So what you do, and this is one of the coolest things about this area, is that you change the contract from a social contract where you should show up early because you have kids at 2 you have to get home to. They basically, put a cost of being late, and the fine was like $1 a minute. So now I know the cost of time, and it's $1 a minute. I choose how much I want to pay for. So they changed it from a social contract to a financial contract, and more people were late, and even later than they were before. So it didn't work. And
They say,
actually,
put it on my tab.
yeah, put it on my tab.
Yeah.
The same was true of and so people were later, and even after they removed the fine, people still came. The late pickups were still higher than they were before.
You
They had
need
a
the
similar.
social pressure on these folks, right? Like put a wall of shame. Like these are the people that pick up their kids late. Change
Yeah,
the incentives. Like not financial anymore, but social.
yes, totally social. Having the teachers' pictures of their kids, on their, like a name tag. Here are the kids that I'm not seeing because I'm waiting on you.
Oh
Ooh, that's
wow.
Something I
heavy.
think
That
shame,
is
public
scathing.
shame really is more valuable, and public hangings.
Public hangings? Is that what we're bringing back?
Like in organizations, I just sat through, these students were wonderful. The PSYOP Consulting Challenge, right? I don't know if you've ever seen or heard of it or whatever. I
Yeah.
hadn't, and I participated in it this year. We give them, the current gig, that I have gives them the challenge, and they they take the data and they figure out, what should we do about it. And one of them was, one of the solutions was, um, you know, changing performance, the performance management system, to, you know, so people are more collaborative. And I've been around this for forever.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really low potency, um, very low potency solution. A high potency solution is public hangings. You literally, not actually, but like you fire the leaders that are not collaborative and you promote the people that are. That will work.
And that almost never happens either.
It almost never happens. People disappear. All of a sudden, like, what happened to George? I don't know. He just disappeared. And you would get more value if you said, "Hey, we killed George. He's out back, and there's a tombstone that says he didn't collaborate." No, I don't really mean that. What I mean is you should get rid of George, but you should let the informal system let everyone know why George is gone. And it's because not collaborative, leaving dead bodies all over the place, whatever the behavior is that you really want. And that's a powerful,
Yeah,
leverage point.
that's the crux of a performance management system, right? To increase the behaviors that you want in an organization that promote
Yeah.
the mission, vision, strategy, whatever, and we'll de-incentivize those ones that we don't, or public hanging, as you put it.
Yeah, it's just performance management is fine, but it's a lag. It's a lagging,
Yeah.
intervention, not a leading intervention. I think you can do it, but it's better doing it, later down the road of the change process than early. Leadership interventions are really the most powerful.
Is performance management fine? I feel like you've written like 20 articles that it's not fine.
Yeah, no, it's not fine. It's not fine at all.
Well, what's
I mean,
broken
it's
about
not. There's nothing about it that's fine, really.
Well, what's wrong with it? I mean, tell us, enlighten us.
Well, I think it's rotten to the core, really. It's really more like, performance management isn't really what we even need anymore. It's more, performance enablement is a pretty good term, but it's gotten kind of bastardized by people that really, I don't think really understand necessarily why enablement is a better option. I don't think we really understand why we have it anymore, and I don't think we understand why we have it the way we have it, like how it got connected to rewards and pay for performance, why it got connected, and whether that purpose really made any sense. It didn't. Um, and so I think we don't even know why we do it anymore. And if we were stepped back far enough, no one steps back far enough. I think I'm the only one foolish enough to spend enough time on it to try to understand it. And
Like, I,
so,
thi- I think it started out with noble beginnings, right? Like we do want to increase our workforce and encourage those behaviors, but
yeah,
over time in a lot of organizations, it shifts to like a political weapon, right? So we want to reward people that we want to move ahead. We want to not
yeah.
punish, but signal to people that we don't want to move ahead that it's time to move on, or you'll be helped move on. This sort of thing.
I think it's exactly right. And it's like 1980 is when the bottom fell out of performance management, when we first started connecting, performance measures to rewards. And and back in the
Was that
80s,
the GE? Was that the GE days?
no, GE was I think GE was a reflection of this move early on, but it really started out with, like, tax law changes trying to reduce, and regulatory changes to try to reduce the amount of CEO pay. I spent a lot of time on this trying to figure this out, and it's not, no one really, I don't think thinks much about this, but back in the the 80s and early 90s, they said CEOs make too much, we have to get rein it in. So let's make regulatory changes, start reporting the pay of the top four officers in the shareholder statements, and let's also make it tax any compensation for executives and CEOs above $1 million, unless it's performance based. And so smart people and smart boards said,
Yes.
okay, stock options become in vogue. I mean, radically. So I think the amount of pay that was performance based for CEOs went from 10% to 90% within like 5 years. And so what
was this an
happens?
intended consequence or an unintended consequence?
Totally unintended. Totally
Okay.
unintended. I mean, the idea is great. Like, let's do public shaming. Let's publicize how much people make. The problem with that is there there wasn't a market for CEO pay before that because there wasn't transparency,
Mm-hmm.
right? So and what that did is it created a market, a transparent market for
Comparative
CEO pay.
market.
So I found out Scott's making, 10 million and Cole's making 12 million. I'm only making 6 million. All of a sudden, you can see how CEO pay just started ratcheting up because of it. Now we have a transparent market. So it absolutely worked. It made things dramatically worse. And
You also
so
like
all of us, yeah. Oh, go ahead, Scott.
Oh, I'm sorry. You also changed the incentive structure. Like your incentive now is to increase shareholder value.
Yeah.
You're no longer focused on the bottom line of the organization, improving the customer experience, right? You you're increasing your own compensation through
Yeah.
stock options.
Or the board. The board
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
And pretty much, these people now have agents, but yeah, the board is saying, what's it gonna? We don't want somebody like, if you're, this is just how crazy it is. You have a board member who says, "Geez, I mean, do we want somebody who's paid below the median
Yeah.
of CEO
Subpar
pay? That doesn't seem to
CEO.
make sense." Yeah, so all of a sudden you just get this ratcheting up. So all of this stuff was crazy, and then all of a sudden, pay for performance became a thing, and it just cascaded through the organization. It was good for CEOs. Why don't we connect it to, take it down deeper in the organization? But what are we going to connect it to? We don't have good measures of performance,
It's-
objective measures like stock price, things like that. Performance management ratings. I mean, yeah,
yeah.
we have those, and all of a sudden, ratings became really important and tied to reward distribution. And no, we haven't looked back since then, and since like the early 80s, I think the amount of your pay that's variable pay based has gone up every year, and the number of people that are part of variable pay plans has gone up every year as well. And so I think for the last 40 years we've done that, and now performance management has become a way to distribute that money. Then you see GE, like, how are we going to make sure that we don't overspend this budget? How are we going to connect it? So we force a distribution so we
Mm-hmm.
can manage how much money is spent uh, on on rewards on our merit budget or our bonus budget, so we don't overspend it. It becomes an administrative exercise, and that's how calibration happened. Well, we can't just go in there and do this. We have to meet beforehand to make sure we calibrate so we get the right performance distribution, so we get the right reward distribution. I mean, it all makes good sense, except it's pathetic. It just doesn't work, and no one remembers why we did it.
In all seriousness, so you've done the history lesson. You've gone and dug into why all these things happen and the intended and unintended consequences of it, and where the current state of the research is on what works and what doesn't work. If you had to tear it all down and build performance management from scratch right now, and you wanted it to be effective, what would your why be? Like why you're doing it, and what would the components of it be? The how?
Yeah, I mean, I think the why doing it is A, it doesn't work. Two, it's never worked, and we've worked on it for 50 years and haven't improved it yet. So with the why is it doesn't work. The other thing is the other why. That's probably the most important why because nobody cares about the research, right? And they have their own. This is back to Cole to
We
your
care.
point.
We care,
Yeah,
Alan.
but
That's why you're here.
nobody else cares. Even some of us don't care. So the research um, overwhelmingly suggests that worst case, we're committing malpractice, right? I think we are. Um,
Just through unintended consequences of this sort of thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And knowing what we know about the quality of ratings, how can you, in good faith, how can you stand
Yeah.
there and say, I think we should use ratings? Or like, dude, that's malpractice. You could get sued for that.
Or you get a 1 through 5 rating for your performance throughout the year. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
With all
But I
sorts of
think
recency bias, halo bias.
I think the better reason to do it is like, the world is changing and how the world is changing. It's not, it's not going to support a performance management system like this that's, individually focused when we're all working in teams. It's based on a job description and competencies when jobs are disintegrating. And, I think the world is changing so much, even agile. You can't use traditional, PM 1.0 in an agile environment. I mean, I work in an agile environment now, and it's ridiculous. You just can't, especially when you're working with people that don't even, your CEO doesn't even sign their paycheck. With all these partnerships and alliances and joint ventures and all your dependencies on outsiders to get your work done, you don't manage their performance. I mean, how are you gonna? You don't control their pay. They're not part of your bonus system. What do you're going to put some onerous, like mercenary service level agreement in place that, and then you're going to put the thumb screws to them, which is what we do to vendors. We put the thumb screws to them, and then we get every last dollar from them. And then we say, thanks for your partnership. Like, this is not a partnership. And if you really want, strong results, you'll treat them like employees rather than vendors. But with the dependence on all this stuff, I mean, you can't manage performance in this world in this way now with half the people that you depend on are not even your people.
Well, what do we do then? How do we handle this? Right?
This is exactly what I dreamed this conversation would go as, and it's going so great. I love this. Thank you,
I just get so angry. My capacity for outrage is just so diminished anymore. But I think what you do, the most important thing is you got to change the comp. The compensation creates the market for all of this nonsense. And so if you really said, you know what, it just doesn't work. And when I talk to senior leaders, like one-on-one, they know it doesn't work, but they don't know what else to do, honestly. And I mean, this is why PM is really a kind of a wicked problem. Have you heard the term wicked problem, like obesity, crime? These are problems that are so difficult to solve. I think this is our version of a wicked problem. And it gets even harder because you ask employees, would you like your pay based on your performance? And what are they going to say? Yeah. I mean, what else would it be based on? And so, part of the problem is employees want, say they want this stuff, but they don't know any better, either. But so I think you got to get rid of the pay part. You got to say, pay for performance doesn't work. We need to find a way to motivate without money and manage compensation without differentiation and pay for performance. And you can do that, but it goes against every fiber of every executive's training and being and DNA. I mean, like
so
what?
I'm imagining like a manager walking around and like he walks into a meeting with like his direct reports and it's like he's got a shirt on with their photos on it. It's like, we didn't do good this quarter because these people fucked up. All right. Back to the elementary school.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's that's what needs to happen, but it will. I mean, yeah, I've been called a socialist pretty often, for that
Are you?
reason that the best thing to do is, is um, pay people based on what it's you gotta pay them well, right? So
Yeah.
pay people above the market. Like if Cole's is our best employee, why are you paying them at the median, right? This is the comp people rule the world,
Right.
right? They do merits, they do salary studies, and they say, well, here's we're paying at the median. We don't want to overpay people. Why not? Yeah,
Yeah.
pay people well, um, and grow their pay over time. So I would, instead of giving merit increases, which are 3%, that's based on the market too. That's not really based on what people are doing. We can't measure who has merit and who doesn't. So pay them give them cost of living increases, and pay them and give them market based adjustments.
You get
Um,
you get pay compression issues where inflation rises higher than the market rate and this sort of thing.
yeah,
There is something you said about tenure based pay, where if someone comes in and you see that they're willing to stick through tough times, you should pay that person because they stick through it. Other
yeah,
people just give up as soon as like something goes wrong.
yeah. No, I agree. I mean, if like, I think we should. And I mean, people would just throw me out, but I think we should say we're going to promote. Unless something really comes, the wheels come off for you, we're going to promote you every 5 years. I don't think we tell you that, but
Hmm.
our
Hmm.
budget should be based on, if you stick around, you do okay, you do what you're asked. We're gonna promote you every 5 years, and you throw out all the other bonus money, all the other merit money. You could fund this. And then their pay, they get a raise every 4 or 5 years, and you say, you know what, you're doing great. We're going to promote you. I mean, that's a big deal, getting promoted. I remember when in my first gig, I remember one of my bosses saying, you know what, I think that 70% of the people we have here in the company today will never be promoted. And I remember going thinking, huh, I didn't know anything. I was just a stupid young, IO saying, like, I think we could answer that.
Hmm.
2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, or whatever, we look at it and say, yeah, I think it's about 60%. And of course, they went, huh, interesting. It's like cocktail party conversation, right? Huh, I was right. You were wrong. Okay, pay up. These are executives saying, just making, just thinking out loud. And of course, they did nothing with it. But ever since then, I'm thinking, yeah, we should promote these people and incorporate it into our budgets. That's what you raise pay that way. It doesn't even have to be a lot. People, you send messages that you're doing a good job. We're gonna, we're promoting you. And now comp people don't like it because they have to administer a system with 20 levels instead of 15 or
Yeah.
14 or 12, and they go, "What? They like broad banding." I'm like, no, narrow banding.
Uh,
And of course,
Well,
they start to have fits.
well, let me ask you a question. So imagine you could get a group of comp people, a group of performance management people, and a group of executives on board. Like, let's say a CEO of 1,000-person company is listening to us right now, and they say, "I'm going to throw out all the stuff that Alan said was bad. And I'm going to replace it with all the stuff that Alan said was good." Do you think that and that you got all the players on board to do it? Do you think that firm would outcompete its competition just based on making that change? And if so, why aren't firms doing this? Because you would think it would just be a playbook for how to outcompete everybody else.
Oh, I have no doubt that they would outcompete. And the idea is, like, right now, most of the focus on PM is trying to make it. How do you make it suck less, right? That's mostly what we're trying to do.
hmm
Make it less of a headwind instead of turning it into a tailwind. But I really do think, if you said, get the pay part out, manage compensation, worry about motivating high performance and supporting and enabling high performance, and motivating people with things like, direction, purpose, autonomy, mastery, all the things that we know really matter. Um, and in managing performance separately from that. I think if you really focused on, performance management as a way of providing direction, providing alignment, connecting, aspirational goals to my work, and then having managers that weren't worrying about keeping score all year and differentiating their people all year, teach them how to, give feedback and enable people to make progress every day. And then, instead of doing performance reviews, do after action reviews after you're done with stuff, figure out, what went wrong? How do we fix it? How do we get better next time? How do you get better? Spend a lot more money on development and growth and, career development, things like that. I think, I think you will outcompete. You won't have managers worrying about, all right, it's that time of year again. You won't have managers worrying about what's the right incentive system. Should we change the mix? Should we keep it the same? Should we keep our foot on the pedal? All that stuff goes away. You don't have to worry about any of that. Consensus, calibration, it all goes away. And you're just left with enabling performance and success. And I think, and making rewards more predictable for people. I mean, people like more predictable rewards. Are you going to lose some people? Yeah, probably. You'll lose some people that are short-term compensation types. But
kind of high principal agent theory people,
that's principal, like agency theory. That's the most evil theory that we have. And I blame the economists and the management people. That and tournament theory. It's ruining. It's like ruining
that is true.
our companies. If you haven't read Ghoshall's address to the Academy of Management meeting 2005, I think, and it was published in Harvard Business Review.
I read it once a week. I'm kidding. I have no idea what that is.
Ghoshall basically said, "Listen, all you, we're ruining these organizations by our theories." So he's speaking to his peers in the Academy of Management and saying the chief perpetrator of this is agency theory. Which
was he hanged after this meeting?
I think he died. I think he died actually before this actual meeting, or shortly thereafter. He passed away very shortly, either before or after this that this was published. I think he had done the address and it was published posthumously. But those two theories, along with operant conditioning, the law of effect, are probably, those are the things that are in the head of executives. And agency theory is based on classical economics. People are motivated by money. They're individualistic. All those things. That's all part of it. And that's why none of this changes. They're like, are you telling me we can't use money to motivate these folks, and that people aren't rational? Hell no, they're not rational. I mean, how could they be? They're your employees. You know good and well they're not rational.
I'm so glad you're here. Like, I don't even necessarily agree with everything you're saying, but I just love hearing you saying it. Like, this is so fun for me. And Alan, I think you know this because I told you offline, but like, I cited a ton of your work on my dissertation, all that kind of stuff. So this is kind of an awe moment for me, personally. But would you like to join us in the Confusion Matrix?
Oh yeah, bring it.
The Confusion Matrix.
Bring it. I love it. Well, we'll operate some agency yourself. Do you want to do more Waffle House, or do you want to do 3 random questions?
What's Waffle House? I have my own issue with Waffle House.
I think you already made your decision, sir. I think
I'm happy to tell you about Waffle House. Yeah.
What's your experience with Waffle Houses? Cole owned one.
Well, no, I didn't. He owns one?
No, I don't.
Oh, here's my problem with Waffle House, and this is kind of a rule. I have a few rules. I probably need more to keep track of more of them. One rule is I will never ride a bike with a basket with a little white dog in it. Okay, that's one rule for me.
Okay.
That'll never happen. Number 2 is I'll never eat in a restaurant with a drain in the dining room. And Waffle House
That's
has a
fair.
drain in it. It's like, why would you have a drain
I
in
think it's
in the
pretty
dining room?
self-explanatory, Alan, why there's a drain.
I think so too. So that's one of my rules. And I came up, after eating in a Waffle House with my the boys. We were coaching out of travel team driving out to um, you know Nebraska, and like we're sitting there. I'm like, there's a drain right there. Wonder why? What is that for? I don't
It
think it's
just makes
good.
life easier, right? Just
Yeah.
put everything right in the middle.
So tell me about what's the Waffle House?
We'll do Waffle House. Okay, your choices are a great performance management system with bad leadership, or great leadership with bad performance management system.
Mm,
It's kind of a Sophie's choice, meant to make you
it
waffle.
is. It is definitely a Sophie's choice. I probably would take. I would take great leadership with bad performance management system any day, because I think leaders will work around. Well, I think
Yeah.
good leaders will work around them. Bad leaders will salute it and say, "We have to do it. I don't know what else to do." So I would choose the good leaders all day long.
So I guess what you're like a PM system isn't a panacea. It can't fix all sorts of things, right?
No, I definitely agree with you. I mean, one thing that we need to keep in mind in our world, and our world is not entirely HR, but in HR is what I call essential support work, right?
Yeah.
So we're not, we don't, a company that's focused on creating a world-class HR organization is going to die, right? That's not going to help you win. What's going to help you win in our business is, like, um, and like having equipment that's smart, in IoT with the right kind of technology and machine learning and things like that with great equipment, world class. That's world class. Um, Doing it, making sure that we have the right people, the right process. We could have the best process in the world and still go out of business if we can't make
Yeah.
good equipment and we can't leverage the technology that we need. So yeah, no, we're performance management is insufficient for a company winning. Strategy is
What
a lot more better. Good strategy.
well, what are the implications when like performance management goes wrong? Like at the individual level.
No, and this is to me this is a
Have you ever
good.
seen anything like this? Yeah.
Oh yeah. I think what can happen with essential support systems like HR, if you have a world class performance management system, you won't necessarily win, but if you really do it badly, you can lose. Okay, that could put you out of business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Litigation, promoting the wrong people, measuring people really, poorly, and making yeah, and having ratings that show adverse impact. I mean, you could really be on the back end of a really awful litigation that damages your reputation enough that leads you to lose customers and so on. But that's the standard for essential support work is at least as good as your competition. And
Mm-hmm.
if you're not at parity with your competition, you can go out of business. If you're, working in a manufacturing organization and, environmental stuff is essential support
Yeah.
work. But if you don't do that at parity and blow up a plant or something like that, yeah, you can go out of business. But if you have a world class, you know,
Mm-hmm.
environmental organization, you could still lose
Yeah. I
if you have a
used to have
terrible
this queued
strategy.
up. I don't remember the exact citation now, but I remember there was this meta analysis a few years ago on performance management, and it showed that a third of the time, performance management makes people perform worse, not better.
Yeah, that's
And
feedback. That's Avi Kluger's
yeah, yeah,
meta-analysis.
yeah.
Yeah, no, it's one of my favorite articles. That I don't know how many people have read that, but I mean
I
that's
have.
kind of bone-jarring
How,
stuff.
how would that work? What like I'm not asking y'all to recount the article per se, but it seems like it's obviously having the opposite effect. Why would they perform worse? Just because they're misaligned to the goals, or they get sidetracked into behaviors that they
I
shouldn't
think
be?
there's a variety of reasons, but and that's why it's a meta-analysis of kind of coming
Yeah.
through all the literature. But I mean, I just imagine some of it is just reactance. So like your experience with something actually ends up demotivating you, and therefore you perform worse. Because in my mind, the whole why of performance management is to try to get people to perform better. And then you realize, like, okay, a third of the time people perform worse as a consequence of what we're doing. Maybe doing nothing would be better than even doing something in this case.
I think you're right. And a lot of what they found is that that um, feedback gets disconnected from the work.
Yeah.
This is why I like, this is why I like rock climbing so much, and it just gives me a different perspective on feedback. Like feedback is really helpful, in rock
Oh no,
climbing,
I
teaching
fell.
people to rock climb. But
It's a quick feedback loop.
yeah, you fall. It's like that was a bit. Yeah, don't do that anymore. Um, but I think they found that the feedback gets disconnected from the work and becomes much more personal. And when it rises to kind of rises up the ladder from task related to this is
Hmm.
indicting me as a person and everything I stand for, then people get very distracted and from the work, and that's partly why people didn't perform better, because it threatened their core identity.
Well, so you were a rock climber, or you are a rock climber, but you were also like a meat cutter at one point, weren't you?
I remember the Amalgamated Meat Cutters Union. You bet.
So
Still got
tell
my
tell us
card.
about, like, how does one become a member of that union?
You go in and somehow you get somebody, you convince somebody to hire you. I can't even remember how I first got my first meat cutting job, but that was a good. I mean, I was making. This is back probably 19, you know, late 70s, mid to
What are
late
you cutting?
70s.
Sides of beef, pork?
Well, the first place I went to, was a real meat market. I mean, you got sides of beef on a truck. You had to
Yeah.
unload them and hang them on the hooks and slide them in, and then you would, which you don't see anymore. You would have days where you would break beef, and so you basically take that and turn it into steaks and roasts and other things. And break beef days were great because I mean, just blood everywhere and gunk everywhere, and you deal with the big stuff, and then you go in the break room with the cashiers, the pretty cashiers, and they're just disgusted by you
Oh
because you
yeah.
have blood, just blood head to toe playing euchre. And they're like, "Oh, can't you sit somewhere else?"
Serial
But
killer
those were the
walking
best.
through
Those were
the.
the best days. Absolutely, looked like you just were in a mass murder.
Did you ever do some Rocky moves on it? Little punch in the side of beef?
Oh yeah, a lot of punching, a lot of punching. But that stuff's hard too. You got to wear gloves.
Yeah, I'd break your hand.
Yeah, but the second place I worked, by then they had started to, do a lot of that work, the breaking down of meat into, we call it box beef, where it comes, you get the roast already in a box, and they've already done all the fun work for you, running the bandsaw, and pretty soon you're not doing much with, a bandsaw um, and a grinder and a cuber, which is the most dangerous machine that, on day one they teach you how to dismantle all the safety. Like one
Yeah.
of the things I learned is like, how do you dismantle all the safety equipment, all these machines,
Oh,
and
great.
yeah, and it's the trade-off between safety and productivity, right? And if anyone who made these machines like kind of sat there and watched you do it, they would say, we got to do something different on this. It's hard to actually do your job with
Yeah.
this safety equipment. But
Well, from your
um,
experience, like, what's the best cut of meat like that you can have?
yeah, this is really important. Like all this stuff, if you go in somewhere and they want to give you oxtail, tongue, um, sweetbreads, I don't have to eat that stuff. I live in a first world country where we have like we can enjoy the real good stuff. Like for me, I probably like a fillet because
Okay.
it's not fatty, um, and if you like really tasty, a prime rib with all the fat, that there's nothing like a bone, especially bone in. Bone in's important because you get a lot of flavor from the bone, but you also get a lot of flavor from that from the fat. So rib eye, prime rib, very very tasty. Um, And the further you get up the loin, the worse it gets. So I think
Mhm.
T-bone, New York strip, good. Porterhouse, pretty good. Sirloins, you start to get
Yeah.
much
Leather.
much further away. Yeah,
Good
no.
Mhm.
steak.
Yeah.
What's your order, Cole? Like you go to the steakhouse, what are you getting?
It's like the bone-in ribeye if they have it,
Yeah.
or it's the
Cowboy, yeah,
prime rib if they have it, like that. Those are my go-tos.
yeah,
Yeah.
What about you?
I am a ribeye guy.
yeah. See, it's good,
Barbecue's
tasty.
brisket. Barbecue's
Oh yeah,
brisket.
Yeah, for sure.
yeah. And
Good.
brisket is good because they cook it for 12 hours. Like if you just ate
Right.
brisket, or flank, like if you're eating Mexican, you get a flank steak. Like, why would anybody eat a flank steak? Because I've taken them out, and
Yeah.
I'm like, and that's the stuff we used to make cube steak out of. And the cuber is basically these cylindrical knives that, like a washing machine thing. The old washing machine, where you put the shirt through there and squeeze out all the water. And that's what you can't get your fingers too close to. But the flank steak, you put that through the cuber 50 times before you would put it in the tray and sell it as cube steak. So, like, why would I eat that? Well, you got to
Yeah.
marinate the
Instant
hell out of
performance
it.
management with the fingers, right?
We'll tenderize the hell out of it and put a lot of spices on it, and it'll taste okay.
Oh
But
yeah, yeah. So
yeah.
yeah, no, you're on the right track.
Well,
Yeah,
you want to
yeah,
do some, Alan? I know you've listened before. You want to do some nerdery?
I do. Yeah,
The nerdery. All right.
I really loved the last episode. I'll see if I get a chance to throw some bones in there. Yeah,
Yeah, do
let's
it.
see. Let's see if I can work some of this stuff in.
Where
Fair
do you want to
enough.
start, Cole? Where do you want to start?
Well, it sounds like Alan's a nerdery guy. So there's kind of interview people who like the interviews, and there's nerdery people. Sounds like you're a nerdery guy, which is good.
Yeah,
It's
I
I don't know.
enjoyed
unfortunate
the
that
nerdery.
the nerdery is getting shorter and shorter over time. This is not
Well, we
ideal.
can extend it. We can make it longer. Well, we've been talking about the finer things. Why don't we talk about the finer details, Scott?
Finer details. Okay. So I became interested in these sub facets of personality. So we typically think about, the big five, or people have conscientiousness or whatever. But this is, of course, a psychometrically driven construct. So under conscientious, you may have dutifulness, or shows up to work on time, this sort of stuff. And then below that, you have different facets, etc. Pardon me, nuances, which are like individual sort of item behaviors. And usually we talk about these domains and how they relate to other behavioral outcomes, life outcomes. But this study tested, can you actually produce better predictions by essentially correlating the not only the domains but the facets and nuances with these life outcomes? They found that those facets predicted better, or explained more variance than the domains, which predicted better than the nuances, or probably the nuances predicted better than the facets. So if you're going to predict something small, you need something small. And if you need something larger, you need a larger sort of domain. But it's another tool in the IO toolkit that we don't have to rely on, big constructs. We can get down to more specific facets and nuances for personality. I found it kind of fascinating.
Oh,
What, what's your
I
what's
love
your
that.
favorite construct, Scott?
My favorite construct?
Yeah, or like your favorite facet?
Openness. Openness.
Openness. Yeah.
Yeah. If we're going to big five.
Yeah, I remember there was a facet underneath openness that I did my master's thesis on called intellectance. And
Intellectance.
I couldn't even tell you what it is now. I just remember I love saying it because it makes you sound intellectual.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. I like openness too. And
Well,
I mean, I like the idea. I'm a biodata guy, so I've been
Yeah.
doing biodata my whole life. Even in the womb, we're doing capturing biodata instruments, items. So I started doing biodata early on with John Callender at my first gig. I don't know if you know who John Callender is, or read
Not
any of the
familiar.
old. validity generalization work.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, John Callender and Osborne, Bart Osborne,
Mhm.
early on. And he introduced me to biodata. We were using biodata there, and it's super powerful. And it's all facets, or it's all nuances. It's
Yeah.
all and and I've been doing it with a career interest inventory that we developed as well. And I've just seen aggregating these, you know, item level nuances. We got way better prediction than, everyone was always talking about making, rational biodata, trying to aggregate these into more rational, um, facets or even larger constructs. And I think there are some in there. Um, the three, this is, early on, and there were three things that were important at this company: brains, breadth, and balls. Right, and you could aggregate all of the biodata stuff we were doing into one of those three categories. But when you did that, you actually got worse prediction. People understood it,
Yeah.
but the prediction was actually worse. And so
Interesting.
I really believe that I like the idea of these nuances, and trying to and trying to get a taxonomy, a more kind of reliable agreement among these taxonomies. Because I think we could do that with biodata items,
Yeah.
and these biodata items are just amazing, and a lot of them are really personality items at their core.
Ethan Mollick found that like 80 to 90% of the scales out there essentially just factor and analyze into a facet of one of the big five. So we got
Yeah,
just a plethora of scales out there,
Yeah.
yeah,
and you can essentially just boil them down to like one of the five factors, really.
Well,
yeah,
and like if you were trying to do assessment to predict things, and you were trying to develop a scale in 2024, it seems like, what's raked over 1,000 times? Well, personality, situational judgment, all
yeah.
the typical kind of go-to places. And it seems like, especially with where machine learning is now, biodata seems like a really untapped area. And I've thought that for a while, why more companies aren't investing in that space to try to do prediction seems like a really good idea.
I think it's I agree 100%. And I've never seen in my experience, 30, 35 years, I've never seen anything do better. But there are lots of barriers to it. People like what you'll never get is someone who takes the Hogan Development Survey, and they go through it, they take it, and they say, I want to look at the questions, right? And you're like, no, you can't look at the questions.
Yeah.
But when you do biodata, they want to look at the questions, and you show them the questions, they're like, what the hell is that? You know, here's my favorite biodata item. It's the best item I've ever seen. It's one item, validity, literally sometimes double digits, like 0.10, 0.11, one item. I am most energetic in the A morning, B afternoon, C evening. Amazing. But somebody looks at that and they're like, what the hell? What does that have to do with,
Interesting.
designing carburetors? Uh, but it works every time, and it's the best item. But you have to explain it, and managers get kind of suspicious about that kind of stuff.
The Air Force found that the biodata item I developed or built model airplanes as a child was like one of the best predictors of
Oh
pilot
yeah,
success, which,
yeah.
there's all sorts of things there. There's like just an interest in aviation, and there may be some, mental projection of like seeing yourself in the cockpit as a child flying around. Who
And that
knows?
one makes, I mean, that one makes a lot of sense. Like the ones when we were predicting innovation. Did you ever, as a kid, did you ever take take things apart just to see how they work?
Yeah.
Works extremely well. Those really kind of face valid biodata items frequently really do work really well.
You want to hear my crazy idea for personality is
Yes.
whenever I die on my gravestone they put like my big five scores or like the INEO 16 or something like that. Just give someone more information about me as a human than like my name
Yeah,
and date. Just Oh yeah, Scott, not
I
so
like it.
altruistic, I see. Or like, not so outgoing.
Here's his openness score. It was his favorite construct,
High
we heard.
openness. Yeah.
And I could see on mine, um, Alan Colquitt, lowest empathy score of any psychologist in the state of Indiana.
Yeah.
Hedonism score 6. So that's one of the things that, like, I have the lowest hedonism score I've ever seen. I mean, anyway, on the Hogan MVPI. It's like, dude, I gotta have more fun. I used to have a little post-it on my screen that said, "Choose fun." It was just, it finally got old and just fell off, and I threw it away. But yeah,
Alan,
low
stop
heat.
and have
Low.
some fun
I'm
for
a
a while.
all business kind of guy.
Oh
I
man.
like that idea though.
But we need to normalize this, bringing people's personality. Give a little bit more information about their life, for
Oh
better or
yeah,
worse.
yeah. No, I like this facet or the nuance idea. I'm all there, all
Yeah.
in.
Cole
Well,
Cole gave me a personality test and turned up negative. That's
it's a good psychology humor right there.
go-to personality joke.
I love
Yeah.
that.
Well, we've hit on it pretty good, but I think it just let's hit on it some more. And I'm sure this is probably a friend of yours. But we have this article from Kevin Murphy in Human Resource Management Journal. Performance evaluation will not die, but it should.
I mean, you can ignore me all you want. I'm just some guy, that's read a lot. But if Kevin Murphy says you should stop performance ratings, I mean, we should listen, right? I mean, that dude spent his career building
Yeah.
performance ratings, and Kevin and I, this is one of my most favorite psyop events, was the debate we had, the ratings debate. I think we had a debate in 2015, and it was two sides. We had Kevin and I were on the anti-ratings side, and I think it was um, Mike Campion and Amy Grubb maybe,
I think
and
I was actually
Seymour
there.
Adler. Seymour
I think
Adler from
Mhm.
Aon and now Concentric was in
yeah.
there, and we were the anti side, and I think Kevin, he just slayed him, and I think we won, and we wrote an article about it later, and most of the pro rating people all their arguments were pretty weak, but if Kevin says it should die, you should listen.
What he says that here are the 4 primary barriers to successful performance evaluation. It's the distribution of performance, the continuing failure to devise reliable and valid methods for obtaining judgments about performance, the limited utility of performance feedback to employees, which we've kind of hit on in this conversation earlier,
Yeah.
and the limited utility of performance evaluations to organizations, which we've also hit on. But yeah, I
Mhm.
actually
Yeah.
think I was at that debate, Alan, and that was a lot of fun to witness the history of biopsychology happening in front of your face. Because I mean, this was a huge debate a few years ago of like, should we just kill performance management? But then again, the law of unintended consequences, what crept up in its space was doing shadow performance management behind the scenes because they didn't get rid of pay per performance.
Yep.
So they still had to have some kind of
Mhm.
ratings to legally justify pay per performance. They didn't get rid of that, so they just did that. And in my opinion, that's even worse. The other experiment I've seen, and I'd love to get your perspective, is companies moving away from traditional performance management to just using 360-degree feedback in its place. What's your perspective on that?
Yeah, I don't, to me, if you got rid of the comp side, reward distribution, if you disconnected these two, I'm all for it. I mean, um, the development part would be much stronger if you had better data and help people, come up with better development ideas. I think in my normal kind of answer to that question is performance management isn't about development. So it's about performance.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm fine with development objectives that are going to help you perform better. Put it in your plan, for sure. development is too important to be tied to performance management, right? And so I would have a different process, that's focused on longer term development, which is critical. And I would have 360 be a part of that.
Okay.
But what I don't want to do is connect 360 to reward distribution. I mean, people will manipulate the hell out of it. And
Well, you're now incentivizing likability and other aspects that are not
yeah,
directly job related,
yeah,
right?
because I really like 360 a lot. But I've changed my tune on this dramatically over the years, because initially it was like, no, this is good data. Let's use it to, to distribute people.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know what I was doing, and this was back in the day when when GE was king, and I was introducing all the things, all the systems that I'm now arguing that we should dismantle. I mean, I put them all in place, thinking I was pretty cool,
Oh
out
yeah.
there on the bleeding edge, and I remember I got interviewed for a book on performance management, 25 years ago, and you go back and you read that, and I was like, yeah. I said, I thought it was the right thing to do, but it's probably the most painful, year, 2 years, 3 years of my life. And now I look back on it and say those were the stupidest things you could have ever done. But we got caught up in it just like everybody else did.
I remember someone, a grad student, granted, proposing the idea that managers should rate every direct report every day and then aggregate it throughout the years. Like, this is just silly. This is not going to
You,
work.
you can see how a good IO would recommend that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah. It's like, at least please do a dissertation on it first before trying this out in the wild.
Yeah,
Like, can we please?
yeah,
You
man.
gonna do the last one?
Yeah, this is a fun one, or maybe
Well,
not.
we'll
I'll
see.
I'll be the judge of that. Yeah,
Do you, Mr. Low Hedonism?
yeah.
Do y'all find your jobs meaningful?
I love that.
Thank goodness I'm not British.
Yeah, this is
Well,
classic Brit, though.
that is a very pessimistic view. 37% of British workers don't think so. And I assume this is a range across jobs and not just like knowledge workers.
Yeah,
But 37% that believe that they're not making a meaningful contribution. This includes 42% of men and 32% of women. Londoners feel they're less fulfilled than other regions, and only 50% felt proud to tell someone else what they did for a job.
I love that question.
This is scary.
Yeah, it is scary.
Well, I mean, they slap you across the face with the title, because they said it. 37% of British workers think their jobs are meaningless. Like, that's, I mean, it doesn't.
They might be right. They might be right.
They may have a pretty high standard too. Yeah, we're all
So the
not
thing,
splitting the atom. That's for sure.
Yeah.
well, I had a weird reaction to this, and it's probably not what they were intending by reading it. My immediate thought was like, to an experiment to run over like the next 5 years to see, of the jobs that were considered meaningless, what percent would be automated by AI versus the jobs that weren't meaningless. And I think this is kind of a running theme of the discussion that Scott and I have had, is we hoped that all the AI would come for the meaningless work, right? But it seems like it's actually coming more for the meaningful work. And so, is the number of British people who think their work is meaningless going to go up over the next 5 years because all the meaningful work is going to get taken by AI? I don't know.
That's an interesting. I mean, it's an interesting theory for sure. I think my first reaction was, and this is what we do. I think in organization is we kind of, in some ways, I think we indict the people. So we indict the employees for not appreciating the meaningfulness of their job, rather
Mhm.
than, I almost, feel like this is a referendum on the the companies they work for, and the managers that they have, that they can't create some sense of, introduce to them, or help them see the line of sight to the meaning that does come from their jobs,
I,
not meaningful, like not like meaning in terms of splitting the atom, and like there's not very many of us that are gonna be involved in stuff that shakes the world, but um, yeah, and I got into this pretty heavy into the purpose and meaning part, and there was a Fast Company series on this, and the Shake Shack guy was on there, and they were talking about how do you make a someone bussing tables and cleaning tables feel a sense of purpose and meaning, and to read them, he said he accomplished this. So I think even if you can get partway there for for roles like that, I think it can be done.
well,
I think more. Of course, I'm you know
there's the story of the janitor at NASA, and
yeah
it's probably apocryphal, but Kennedy's walking through, and the guy's like, well, I build rockets. Whatever. He's like, well, clearly you're a janitor. He's like, no, I keep the floor clean so people can have a clean environment and build these great machines and advance our humankind, etc.
yeah
Yeah.
So I think that's right.
Yeah, I mean, the
yeah
shorter version, I think, is like you said, I'm not cleaning the floors, I'm putting a man on the moon or
Yeah.
something like that, which is
It's
really
yeah.
cool.
It's the story of the three Masons. I'm building a cathedral. So I'm not laying bricks. I'm building a cathedral. Now, I mean, that sounds when you say that stuff in organizations, they just roll their eyes at you and say you're
Your performance rating just went down a little bit.
socialist, hippie. So yeah, but I do think that it's possible to get people much more comfortable, even if if you get people identified with what you're trying to accomplish in your company, um, then and you connect you know your goals and objectives to those. I think you'll get people feeling a lot more meaning in their life and in their
Hmm.
work, and also the way cognition and works is that pretty soon you begin to connect those to yourself, just more, unconsciously. So you start feeling better about it just because you're doing something that your boss loves or your organization loves. And yeah, I think it's more of a part of it's a marketing campaign, but part of it
Yeah.
is real,
Yeah.
real
I,
connection.
I love the positive spin you're putting on it. My mind immediately went to where Cole was going as well. It's like all this Gen AI. Say like a lot of people are put out to work, or they no longer get to engage in cognitive task, as it were. I don't know what's going to happen because people derive so much meaning from their work and so much of their just personal happiness from having something to do that contributes. And what
Yeah,
happens when you sit on your ass all day?
yeah,
I mean, I'll build on what Alan was saying is like, maybe some of that meaninglessness is self-inflicted due to our own like
Absolutely.
cynicism, or, we're
Absolutely.
worried about being cringe or being cheesy. I mean, I'll say this: in the last like 2 or 3 years, I've consciously leaned into being more cheesy and being more overtly saying like, this is meaningful to me. This matters. This is what
yeah,
I care about. And I think that kind of stuff is just like cynicism is infectious. I think, being cheesy, but being authentic is also infectious. And so we should do that. Like, this stuff matters. Like, honestly, having you on the podcast, it's made my day, man. Like, this has been awesome.
and
This
I'm
is what I
not.
dreamed. Like, when we started the podcast, this is what I dreamed it'd be like. If somebody comes on, they're like, burn it all down. And I'm like, yes. It just doesn't happen that way. So this is fun. I don't
That's
know.
really the way I end most of the presentations I do is that with the picture of you know, Cortez burning the ships in the harbor. It's like, start them on fire, man. We're not going back.
Yeah,
Burn it down for sure.
that's funny.
Well, it's been fun, Alan. I'll leave you with a bar scale. Why not? We'll keep with the
Yeah.
performance management roots. From a scale of like 1 to 3, like was this like cringy, as Cole mentioned there, or like memorable and captivating? How'd you
Oh, this
rate
is
it?
the most memorable and captivating podcast I've been on for
I think
sure.
we won.
Yeah.
That sounds
No,
very
and
cynical.
just to be clear about, like, you can't really see everything, but um, I got to find a way to work this in. I'm about, probably 1.25 princes high and probably 1.5 princes in terms of of mass.
Wait,
that
what?
was one of my favorite lines from the last
Prince scale
podcast was Prince as a unit of measurement. I love that.
Solid.
Oh yeah, no,
I just realized what you were talking about. I was like,
tell you, it took you a while, so I don't know how long ago that was taped, but I wrote that down. I like that.
Prince as a unit
Prince
of measurement.
as a unit of measurement.
Yeah. Well, who was that with? I can't even remember.
That was the Michigan State guy.
Oh yeah,
Carter,
yeah.
Nathan.
Yeah, Nathan Carter. Yeah, the running back.
That's funny. Oh yeah. That's really. We're gonna have to start asking all of our guests how many princes tall they are.
I thought for sure you were gonna ask me for right out of the gate. I meant to do it early on and say, okay, you need to know a few things about me. I'm about 1.25 princes tall and about 1.5 princes in weight, and
we got your stats,
and about 1% of Prince in terms of guitar ability. Yeah.
This is great stuff. Well, Alan, you've been fantastic, and I appreciate your high rating for the podcast. But you've been listening to Directionally Correct, a People Analytics podcast with Cole and Scott, and today's guest, Alan Colquitt. Thanks, Alan.
You bet.
Hey guys, Directionally Correct is dedicated to you, our listeners, to help educate and entertain you on how to effectively do people analytics. By supporting this podcast, you are helping us continue to provide valuable insights and knowledge to our listeners. Please consider becoming a patron of the podcast. You can find the link to sign up in the show notes or at patron.podbean.com/directionallycorrect. Thanks for your support.